These are the lifestyles you can choose when living in Raleigh and Durham. You know, everybody talks about the best suburbs in Raleigh and Durham, but the best suburb for one person can be the wrong choice for someone else. And today I'm going to break down the best suburbs in Raleigh-Durham in 2026 based on the way that you actually want to live. You know, I've been helping people move here for years, and the biggest mistake usually happens before they ever make an offer. Let's start with the best place for young professionals. The Triangle has options for all kinds of lifestyles. Some young professionals are headed to downtown Raleigh, others are going to RTP, others are working in Durham. So the thing is, where you choose to live can have a pretty big impact on your daily life. So let's start with the places that tend to work best for young professionals, and Raleigh is usually at the top of that list. If being close to restaurants, concerts, coffee shops, nightlife, and events is important to you, Raleigh gives you more of that than anywhere else in the Triangle. Areas like Glenwood South and the Warehouse District are where a lot of people in their 20s and their 30s spend a lot of time. So you've got so many different employers, and that is a huge advantage. You've got state government, you've got NC State University, healthcare, technology, and companies across the range of industries. That gives people options as their careers change over time. Housing near downtown can vary quite a bit. Condos and townhomes often start in the low to mid 400s and move well into 600s, while the single family homes close to the urban core can go much higher. Then you've got Durham, which tends to attract people looking for something with a little bit more character. Downtown Durham has changed quite a bit over the last couple of decades, and areas like the American Tobacco campus and the 9th Street have become some of the most popular places in the Triangle. Duke University plays a big role here, but so do biotech, healthcare, technology, and the arts, and the best restaurants around are always found in Durham. So if you're considering yourself a foodie, Durham's reputation for great eats reaches well beyond North Carolina. It can also be easier on the budget than some nearby areas, with many homes landing in the low 400s. Another suburb is Morrisville. It's the place I bring up when somebody tells me their job is in RTP and they don't want to spend their life sitting in traffic. You're right next to one of the largest employment centers in the country, and for some people that means a commute of 10 minutes or less. So the town has also become one of the most diverse communities in North Carolina. People have moved here from all over the world, and that influence shows up everywhere from local businesses to the restaurant scene. Most homes are in the mid 400s to the mid 500s, with townhomes and condos offering a lower entry point. So if you're looking for city energy, Raleigh is hard to beat. And if you want culture and character, Durham deserves a look. And if career convenience is on the top of your list, Morrisville makes a strong case for itself. So the next category is for people who care a little less about what's going on downtown and a little bit more about what they're doing once the weekend starts. Now, if you're planning on a move to the Triangle and you're not quite sure which area is best fit, reach out. Let's talk about your situation and what you're looking for and which communities you should be focusing on. You know, my contact information is down below, and I'd love to hear from you. So back to this list. What about the best places for an active community lifestyle? One thing I've noticed over the years is that the places where people stay the longest aren't always the closest to work or the least expensive. They're usually the places where people get involved. They know their neighbors. They have local events that they look forward to. They spend time in parks or on the trails and around the town center. You know, when people start looking at western Wake County, Cary is one of the first places that gets their attention. Cary has spent years building parks and greenways and recreation facilities and community spaces. Bond Park gets most of the attention reason, but the greenway system, the sports facilities, and the local programming are a big part of why people stay in Cary. The town keeps investing in those things too, and downtown Cary has also grown into a destination of its very own. So between the farmers market, the restaurants, the festivals, the local events, people have plenty of reason to spend time in Cary, North Carolina. And some buyers end up loving how organized Cary is. But others want something with a little less structure, and that's where Apex often comes into the picture. It has become one of the most popular towns in western Wake County, and downtown Apex has a lot to do with that. Salem Street gives the town a personality that's hard to duplicate anywhere else in our area. The restaurants, the shops, the local events, the community gatherings aren't something the town added recently. They're a big part of why people choose Apex in the first place. So the town is continuing to build on that atmosphere. A social district launched last year, and plans are moving forward to make downtown Apex even more walkable. And when it comes to homes, prices in Apex are not so different from Cary. Most single-family homes fall somewhere between the low sixes. You know, I personally think the reason that some people choose Apex over Cary is because they want a slightly larger lot and a bit more green space surrounding them every day. And in a few minutes, I'll show you two communities where the university isn't just nearby, it shapes the restaurants and the events and even the personality of the town. Now, another great option for this kind of person is Holly Springs, which attracts buyers who want newer homes and newer communities. Much of the growth in Holly Springs has happened later than Cary or Apex, so a lot of the neighborhoods were built with walking trails, pools, clubhouse, gathering spaces already included. And the town has also kept adding community facilities as it's grown. The Holly Springs Cultural Center has become one of the main places for performances, events, and local celebrations. So price is another reason people look here. Most homes run from the mid-5s to the low 600s, and that means buyers can often get a little bit more house for their money than they can in Cary or Apex, while still staying in western Wake County. So all three of these towns have put serious effort into building places where people spend time outside of work. Which one fits best usually comes down to whether you prefer Cary's amenities and a faster pace, or Apex's small town character, or Holly Springs' newer neighborhoods and the value. Now, if your budget is driving the decision more than the parks and trails and community events, the next group of suburbs deserves a look. For the most value and affordability found in Southern Wake, people moving from places like New York, California, or the Pacific Northwest notice pretty quickly that their money can still go further here than they expected. And depending on where you look, that extra value can show up in different ways. You know, Garner tends to catch people's attention once they realize how close it is to Raleigh. You're often only about 15 to 20 minutes away from downtown, which means that you still have easy access to restaurants, parks, museums, and employers without paying the same prices buyers see closer to the city. The town has been growing too, and downtown Garner has been adding new gathering places and local businesses, and there's still room for that area to keep improving over the next several years. The housing stock is also more mixed than some of the newer suburbs. Most homes are in the high 300s or low 400s, and you'll find older homes and newer construction with an overall wider range of options depending on what you're looking for. So these towns do a great job on value, but later on we'll look at the places people choose when the commute becomes the top priority. Now, Clayton attracts buyers for a different reason. A lot of people head there because they want to maximize what their budget can afford. The commute around Clayton is longer, especially if you're working at RTP, but buyers often find themselves looking at larger homes, newer construction, and neighborhoods that would be a higher cost closer to Raleigh. So most homes in Clayton are running from the mid-3s to the low 4s, and that's been a driving force behind Clayton's growth. New neighborhoods keep getting built, Downtown continues to improve, and more buyers are starting to consider Johnston County than they did a few years ago. And another area that sits in an interesting spot between those two is Knightdale. And you're still close enough to Raleigh that the commute works well for many people, but home prices are often easier on the budget than what you'll find in western Wake County. Space is a part of the appeal, and a larger lot or a newer home can be much easier to find here than in some of the more expensive suburbs, with most homes in Knightdale falling between the mid-3s and the low 4s. The Neuse River Trail adds something else that buyers like in this area. There are miles of trails, parks, and outdoor space run right through this area, and that's not something that every suburb can offer. What I like most about all three of these towns is that they're not trying to be the same place. Garner gives you quick access to Raleigh, Clayton gives buyers more house for the money, and Knightdale gives you a balance of affordability, convenience, and outdoor space. And if your budget isn't driving the decision quite as much, the next group of suburbs offers something completely different. College town energy. Not everyone moves to the Triangle because of a job. Some people want to live around the energy that comes with a major university. They like college sports, campus events, coffee shops, and bookstores. They enjoy living somewhere that's active and connected to what's happening around them. That's one reason Chapel Hill continues to attract this kind of person. UNC sits right in the middle of town, and the university influences almost everything around it. Franklin Street is lined with restaurants and coffee shops, bookstores, and local businesses that have been part of the community for years. So what stands out about Chapel Hill is that the people often stay long after their student years are over. The university brings people in, but the town gives them a reason to stay. Scarborough adds another layer to it. It's right next door to Chapel Hill, but it has a stronger arts presence and a personality all of its own. The two communities blend together in a way that gives residents access to both. The biggest hurdle for some buyers is price. And Chapel Hill is one of the more expensive communities in the Triangle. Most homes run from the mid-5s into the high 6s, and the homes closer to campus can go much higher. But not everyone is looking for a college town. Some people want history, character, and that small town atmosphere, and I'll show you where you can find it in a minute. Now, Durham earns a place in this category too, but for different reasons. Duke is a major part of Durham. Between the university, Duke Health, sporting events, lectures, and arts programs, there's always activities connected to the campus. And at the same time, Durham has turned into much more than a university town. The restaurants, the performing art venues, downtown businesses, the local culture attracts people from all over our region. And that's part of what makes Durham appealing. You can be connected to Duke while also living in a city that has built its own reputation. So some prices help too. Compared to Chapel Hill, Durham is often easier on the budget. But as I mentioned earlier, many homes still fall around the low 400s. Both communities appeal to buyers who want to be close to the opportunities and the activities that the universities bring. Chapel Hill leans more towards the traditional college town experience, while Durham offers that university connection with a larger city vibe. But for some people, everything starts with the commute. And that's exactly what these next suburbs are built around. RTP Commute champions. Since RTP is one of the biggest employment centers in our entire region, if you're working there, your commute is part of your routine 5 days a week. A few extra minutes may not sound like much at first, but over the course of a year, it really adds up. And that's why Morrisville gets so much attention from RTP employees. For some people, the location alone is enough. Depending on where you live and where your office is, your commute can be about about 10 minutes. So the roads around Morrisville are practically built for RTP commuters. Between NC 54, Aviation Parkway, Morrisville Parkway, and I-40, getting into different parts of the park is usually pretty straightforward, and it just makes everyday life easier. So now Cary pulls in a different crowd. Getting to RTP isn't hard from Cary, but a lot of people, what really sells them is everything else that Cary has to offer once the workday is over. For some buyers, adding a few extra minutes to their commute is an easy decision if it means having access to everything that Cary offers. Apex is another one that attracts another type of person. The commute still works well for RTP, especially with 540 connecting to Apex directly from the park, but that drive isn't the only reason people end up choosing Apex. The downtown plays a big role too. Also the local events, the restaurants, and the trails that you get around downtown Apex. For a lot of buyers, that's what separates Apex from some of the other RTP options. That short drive is important for this group of buyers, but so is where they're spending the rest of their time. I believe that the people that choose Apex over Cary are the ones that want a little bit more space, a little bit more green atmosphere around their homes. Now, for people that care a lot more about living in a place with that small town charm, the next suburbs fit them perfectly. You know, some people are looking for the newest neighborhoods or the shortest commute. Others want a town that has been around long enough to have its own traditions, local events, and a great, charming downtown area. Wake Forest is one of the places that stands out for this asset. Wake Forest University started here before moving to Winston-Salem in 1956, and the original campus is still part of downtown Wake Forest. You can still see that history around town. The downtown area has older buildings, huge trees, and a look that's different from many of the newer suburbs around Raleigh. You know, most homes run from the high 4s to the mid 5s with a mix of older neighborhoods and newer communities. The town has also held on to events that people look forward to every year. And one of those events is called Meet in the Street. This recently celebrated its 44th year and continues to bring people together from all over the area. Fuquay-Varina attracts a lot of the same small-town buyer, but it gets there a little bit differently. The town's separated as two separate communities, Fuquay, Springs, and Varina, and before eventually becoming one town. Don't worry about pronouncing it wrong. It's Fuquay-Varina, and I've heard it pronounced every way. The history is still part of downtown today. Both downtown districts have local restaurants, shops, and community events, and giving residents more than one place to hang out. Fuquay-Varina has grown quickly over the last few years, but it hasn't lost the things that made people want to live there in the first place. Most homes run between the mid-400s, and the drive to Raleigh is usually around 25 to 35 minutes. At the same time, NC 540 gives residents another route to the rest of the triangle. And before you start narrowing down your list, there's a few things about living in the triangle that don't always show up on those relocation guides. There's some honest trade-offs. I've lived here for years, and these are the things that tend to surprise people the most when they move here. One of them is how much people rely on their cars. You will need a car in Raleigh or anywhere in the triangle, period. So the triangle grew around roads and highways outside of the parts of downtown Raleigh, downtown Durham, and Chapel Hill. So most people drive pretty much everywhere. They drive to work, to the grocery store, they drive to restaurants, parks, and to the activities that they do on the weekends. Public transportation exists, and it works for certain communities, but most residents still use a car every single day. Traffic can also vary more than people expect. A drive across the triangle might take 20 minutes at one time of the day, and pretty much at another, it might take 40 to 50 minutes. I-40 and the Beltline are usually where people notice that the most. That's one reason choosing the right suburb is really important. The same house can give you a very different daily routine depending on where you're working. People also need to get used to the weather here. Anyone moving from Colorado, the Pacific Northwest, or another area with drier summers will probably feel the humidity a bit harder. July and August are usually the hardest months, but people spend plenty of time outside, but you'll see a lot more activity early in the morning and later in the evening. Spring arrives early, fall weather sticks around well into November, and winters are mild compared to much of the country. We've also got hurricane season, which runs from June through November. Direct hits aren't that common, but heavy rain and occasional wind are part of life here. Now, the other thing worth knowing is that this region continues to grow quickly. Now, residents keep arriving, employers keep expanding, new projects keep getting announced, and that's what makes some communities change really fast around here. Fuquay-Varina is a great example here. Its population has more than doubled over the last decade or so, and growth is still happening. The ongoing completion of the 540 loop will also make several parts of the triangle easier to reach, which tends to bring even more development to nearby areas. So a town that feels small today may look different in a few years from now. And that's why I always tell people to think about where a community is heading, not just what it looks like the day that you buy the house. The truth is there isn't one best suburb on our list. The right one is the place that fits your lifestyle, your commute, your budget, and what you want your day-to-day life to look like once you buy your home. If you're thinking about a move to the Triangle and trying to figure out which one of these suburbs makes most sense for your lifestyle and budget, reach out to me at marty@martyhampton.com or give me a call. 919-601-7710. I'm happy to talk you through your needs and your options. So call me today. I'd love to hear from you. And if Durham is one of the places you're considering, check out the video I've attached. I'll break down the neighborhoods there and who each one tends to work best for. Thanks for watching. See you next time.